Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up.
Hello, Ben.
Hi, Jeremy. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you too. And welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up, where we look at everything to do with the London market, technology change, innovation, and this week, umbrellas. This is our new home as well. We're going to be broadcasting live from YouTube from now on. So do subscribe and like, and you'll get the notifications as we put up new content. But as always, let's start with a bit of news. And this actually, I'll tee this up, Ben, because it's news about the UK Insurers Monitor, which is about e-trading, isn't it? I think this is a piece of work that you've been doing.
Yeah, we've been doing a bit of surveying of what brokers use in terms of e-trading, and we've got a lot more data than I'm showing today. But the sort of interesting thing is, what proportion of brokers are e-trading at the moment, and are they Luddites? Are they embracing this technology or not? And then, of course, we're talking about the UK regional market here, not the London market.
Okay.
And obviously, we will be talking about the London market probably next week, but this is the regional market. So if you want to move on, that what this shows is that actually most brokers are e-trading pretty regularly as well. So 20% all the time, 50% regularly, more than once a week. So pretty much the majority, by quite a large margin, is trading on computers quite regularly, and generally they say it's quite good. So this is kind of positive. So the reason partly we asked about this is A, because e-trading is happening, and B, because there are a lot of service issues at the moment with a variety of causes, and we wanted to just see where does e-trading and technology fit into this. And so this is quite a positive side, but then if you kind of go on to the next one, you can see that while e-trading is quite positively viewed, how often do you experience out-of-scope risk problems when e-trading? What this shows is that actually while the technology is okay and it seems to be sort of reasonably fine, actually quite a lot of brokers are experiencing issues with risks where computer says no effectively, and therefore this is causing a sort of loop back into the more traditional way of dealing with insurers, i.e. talking to underwriters, or they just get left a bit high and dry. So this is the crunch issue really around how this technology is going to work. And I've been talking to a company called Polaris that sets a lot of the standards and helps insurers to set out these e-trading systems such that they are able to automatically write these risks or not write these risks. And from them, it's clear that this is actually quite complex. There's a lot of issues around common standards and questions that they want to ask. If you deal with 8 insurers around a table, you get 12 different bunches of questions, and this company Polaris tries to reduce this and streamline it and make it all work, but it's still quite complicated because of the I suppose slightly more bespoke nature of the market. We haven't got agreement on a lot of these policies and wordings and whether they'll write the risk, not write the risk, and whether this is a problem that will go away, I don't know. But one of the things that we've been talking about, particularly with the Bieber people and looking forward, is where you've got a talent crunch, if e-trading can mop up a lot of this small stuff, then you don't have to have people doing much with it, and it frees up resource basically to deal with more complex things. So that's kind of interesting. So that's one of the things we're going to be talking about at the Bieber conference. And the other, I think, sort of point linked to this is what's the balance that you achieve then between people and technology? And again, we had kind of interesting discussions around this, that in some places in the world. There is e-trading, but then underwriters give it the once over, so they have a look at the risk as well at the same time. So they've got a balance. But in the UK, that doesn't seem to happen as much. I suppose what strikes me is that you should and would have in future more agreed protocols, ways of working, not just data standards, or which we've talked about before, to make this happen. And it doesn't seem to me it's beyond the wit of people in insurance to make this happen. But I did get a strong sense, as I think I said to you before the show, that actually there's a bit of a feeling that it's a sort of endless problem that you'll always wrestle with and never come to a landing. But I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think probably at the beginning of these technologies being used, that is what happens, but that eventually it sort of untangles itself and works out quite well. But we'll see. But it's widely used, and it's all to be a solution to a lot of issues around the straightforward automated bit of insurance, or what could be automated.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I was talking to RSA earlier today, and they were talking about how they are, and this is in kind of commercial lines, how they are kind of looking at digital and data, and not through the lens of cost cutting and getting rid of people or anything like that. It was really to do with how do they enhance the customer experience. So if we go back to what we've talked about in the past about the kind of the drop off in insurtech investment over the last 18 months, 2 years, I still think there's a lot of activity in that space, but it's much more rifle shot. So 5 or 6 years ago, it was very scattergun and people were just doing stuff. Now I think, and I was getting a feeling with the conversations I was having this morning, that they really know what the problems that they're trying to solve, to your point, and then they're going after the technology that can solve it piece by piece. They're not looking at it going, how do we put a whole system in that can do straight through claims and all this kind of thing. It's saying we have a specific problem in the claims process here. We think technology or automation or data could help. Let's see if we can put something in. So it's quite interesting, I think, the way that is.
It is. And the only thing I think about all of this is that we've been doing this quite a few years ago, and is the industry now moving into something that's more about the sort of data that would help customers not just get a policy agreed, which is sort of what the industry is supposed to be able to do efficiently and quickly, versus does it help people or businesses to mitigate risks or offer solutions or advice on risk. And it feels like that's the bigger vision, but we're still wrestling with this quite basic technology and stuff around just delivering a policy.
So that is interesting, because I was speaking to another insurer about this very thing, and they said that they are going through a claims transformation using digital and data right now. And what they said was, we're glad that we didn't do it 5 years ago, because if we'd done it 5 years ago, we'd have to do it all over again now, because the technology landscape has changed so much.
Yeah.
If they'd done it 5 years ago, they would have still been in, an on-premise, lots of servers.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been a cloud-based sort of iterative, small, that agile, I suppose, overused word again, but that is quite interesting. And that also plays into a feeling that I've got around, and we talk a lot about automation and AI, but I genuinely think that there is a coming together of the basic technologies that you're talking about, Ben, along with this really exciting stuff, and almost one is feeding the other, and it's just, you can see it and feel it in what people are investing in and making changes.
I'd agree, and I think certainly the conversations have changed considerably since the pandemic and perhaps during the pandemic, but they are now much more about where are we going, what are we going to do, what are we going to direct at the customer. And I think that's probably the biggest change, is that sense of we've got to add some value, or else what's the point? We just become a money shop.
Yeah.
But the struggle is to really understand what that positioning is particularly for insurers. I think brokers are fairly clear because they've got to service their clients, getting the best prices and things. But even there are restrictions because the way that the remuneration works in structured distribution networks is that it can be constraining, if you like, of innovation and doing things differently and charging fees maybe for advice. So it's again, I think it's a really big issue, this, what is the purpose, if you like, of the industry. And if it's moved on, and this is customers decide this, if it's moved on and they say, well, I don't just want policies, I kind of think that's the basics of what you should deliver. I want something more than that.
Yeah.
Something more, like in my car, I don't just want to drive it from A to B. I want something that's an experience or helps me in some other way, whatever that might be.
I was thinking about that as well. We talked about you could buy BMW now. You can buy modules after the car is finished, basically software upgrades or things like that.
Yeah.
I was thinking, why can't you, like a PlayStation, you can decide what your control layout is like? Yeah. So on the BMW, I don't like the fact that the cruise control is on the left-hand side. I prefer on the Mitsubishi where it's on the right-hand side. It feels more natural to me.
Yeah.
That I deal with that kind of important cruise control stuff with my right hand.
Yeah.
And maybe if I was left-handed, I'd feel differently. But why couldn't they, just set up a steering wheel and go, right, you've got these buttons. This is a default setting. However, if you want to change them around, just swap them over in the control. You think that'd be a good piece. And the same applies to insurance, isn't it? It's going to unbundle, and people will be able to pick and choose, in personal lines particularly, I think. And then on the back of that, there will be added value either through communications or whatever else it is. So I think all these things coming together just make it a very exciting time, I think.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of tailoring is interesting, and whether that's even possible, we'll come on to that in a second, actually, in this book review. But if you start to think about what beyond the basic product and what it does, which is it's done for a long time, the challenges are quite significant, but you certainly ought to be able to innovate these products in such a way that they work more effectively, and the digitization of the industry should make that easy to do. That's the point. I think that's a really important point, is that the digital stuff at the moment doesn't work very well. And what research that I've seen, I think Bain said there's in consumer markets, a lot of people just go, like the e-trading stuff, they go, well, I'll give it a go, but actually, if that doesn't work, I'm just going to call my broker. And at that point, you've lost the benefit of the digitalization, and in fact, you've just doubled up your cost because you've done all the development, and then you've still got to have people to cover the fact that the system has failed. So we've got to start to think about digitalization that actually really does work and works for the customer. Stroke the broker. I think claims portals do that to a degree in the UK market, which is a positive. But we should have much more that, like you say, you can say, well, I'll just go, rather like the aggregators, I'll choose my policy and sort it out that way.
Yeah. Good. Right. Excellent. Thanks for that, Ben. We'll watch that as we go forward because, as I say, I think it's an exciting time for technology. Right. So let's talk about the book, Risky Business. So, you saw this in the FT, I think, as well.
It's a review. I haven't actually read it, so I've got to admit that up front. But I did think it was an interesting concept. Maybe I don't even need to read it now. But I think so. Basically, this is kind of what I suppose we know is that insurance is a market. They call it a selection market. In other words, insurers have to select what are the best risks, which we know about. But the book says that this makes it problematic both for insurers and for customers. And if the data's not very, and the reason for it partly is the data's not very good, and actually it's particularly consumers, but I guess also businesses kind of know what their risks are and how risky they are, but they're not necessarily going to let the insurer know that. and the insurer, because of poor data, can't always find that out. So that's why insurance markets don't work very well, because of the imperfection of the data, really. And this leads to all sorts of consequences, which is often one of them that's mentioned here, is that often risks that are good get missed because those people decide, because it's such a painful process, or insurers pulled out of something, the good people decide, well, I'm not going to bother with insurance at all. So you miss out your safe risks, or safer risks, or more profitable risks, and you end up with a kind of spiraling to the bottom almost. And there's no answer. They don't give an answer to this, and so there's necessarily a solution. It's just a sort of, you've got to get better data, you've got to keep on matching things up, you've got to keep on working things out, which would lead you to think that actually in many markets, the death of the underwriter has been greatly exaggerated, and that therefore you do need people, not just AI, to try and work out whether risks are worth taking or not taking based on interpretation of the data. And then they kind of finish off, rounding this off with, and this is mainly the FT writers saying, what about big data? What about the fact that suddenly insurers might be able to find out about the fact that certain types of people are more risky than others, and therefore the insurers suddenly have much more power, and then you've got to kind of regulate for that, and so on. So there's no answer, but it does. It's probably. I mean, I might read it, and I might even know more. I might know exactly what I know now. I may not learn anything by reading beyond the review. But anyway, I get. I kind of get the notion.
Yeah, and you see it kind of played out in flood, don't you? Where you have whole regions that are uninsurable because they're in flood zones. However, there are some properties within those zones that are perfectly fine to insure. Or you might, come back to our customization thing. You might have, if you live in these areas, then you have to have certain level of protection. I don't know, whatever. Or the insurers might actually go, there's an opportunity here because we've got advanced warnings of, let's just stick with a flood, a weather alert, and we can help with that. We could get in front.
Yeah. A lot of this comes down to human behaviour and how you can to understand it and then act on it. So it's part of the problem here is that this book, from what I can see, even though I said I haven't read it, it does seem to imply that it has to be the insurer working it all out from data without any conferring of responsibility onto the insured themselves. Whereas actually, I think in many ways you can create a partnership which is mutually beneficial. But at the moment, that's not how the industry operates. It treats everybody almost as a potential fraud or a bad risk, and that's kind of the wrong way around in a way. I get why it happens, but I wonder if that's really how people are and how they behave. Yes, some do, but you have an element of that in every market fraud. But most people probably say, I just want this to work to my advantage, and I don't want to take advantage of it. I want it to be fair.
Yeah, definitely.
It's again another thing the industry has to really think about in future as to what is the relationship it has with a customer. Is it a kind of just one-way traffic thing, which is we'll assess you on these questions. If we don't like it, that's it. But this book would suggest that the data, which I haven't read, suggests that the data is actually so poor that that's a bit imperfect. So it makes a mess of the system.
Yeah.
And will you ever really get perfect data? Not necessarily, because it often leads you down the wrong path.
Yeah. And will you ever read the book?
I don't know. I might.
Might do.
I mean, I've done a good job without reading it, so
good review.
Yeah, I always wonder that on radio shows or TV shows where they said this is a great book, really good, whether they've actually read it. Because you can't read. I mean, some of them are talking about 3 books.
In one
How can you read 3 books a week?
I think they probably get somebody to skim read it and pull out some interesting bits. Going, I really like this bit where you said this.
Yeah, you can read the back cover
Yeah,
and a review, and then you can pick out a couple of pages in the middle and go, oh yeah, what you said in page 242 was really fascinating.
Fascinating. Yeah, good.
I didn't do that. I was honest.
Well, yeah, more book reviews to come. Books we've never read reviews. It's a brilliant feature.
Could do that. Yeah, well, be longer than the one about books we have read.
Yes, you're right. All right, let's stick with the weather vein. Weather vein to get it.
Weather vein, yeah, good.
This is a good time to resurrect this. Seems we've had the terrible weather the last few days. But yeah, we talked about umbrellas and doing an umbrella survey, and you remembered that you'd already done one.
We've done 2 actually. We did do it 2 years running in 14 and 15, and then why we stopped, I can't even remember, but it's that far back. But yeah, I thought I'd dig out the previous results because somebody on LinkedIn was holding a rather bedraggled, destroyed convex umbrella and complaining that it wasn't up to scratch and they was going to get another one. And there was a whole series of comments, and I just commented on it and then remembered that we'd actually done the study and I shared a bit of data, but I'll share it here as well. So this was back in the day. At that time, XL Catlin had the most umbrellas, and in fact, this figure here is quoted in Stephen Catlin's book. Talking of books, and I have read this one. I have read his book, by the way.
Yeah,
and he quotes this to show just how strong their brand was at the time, because everybody mentioned this. So the XL Catlin, that was their old logo there, followed by Amlin Brit, TMK, and Liberty, and strong and sturdy, and they are plentiful. So they were kind of like, that was the measure of ubiquity, if you like, how many, market share. And then we did another question, which was about the most desirable, and this was one that Ascot topped this one because of its very colourful umbrella. So Ascot is colourful; it goes up, goes down, and protects all the important bits. Was a broker comment at the time.
It's brilliant.
And actually, people wax lyrical about this. It was good because they obviously have strong feelings about these umbrellas. And we did do one on quality as well, which created quite a stir because quite a few people, Bruce Carman, who's been on our show before, who was at the time at Atrium, and he'd been instrumental in purchasing their umbrella supply, which he'd said was the best quality. And he was publicly critical of the survey, saying that it hadn't focused on quality, it had focused on quantity. But again, we may be having this argument again.
Yeah, indeed. So are we going to run? Are you going to run the survey?
Yeah,
again?
We'll run it probably towards the end of the year. We always ran it around Christmas time because we needed the weather to match if we possibly could, and B, we wanted to do it as a bit of fun at Christmas.
Yeah, good. Well, we'll keep collecting the umbrellas. We'll do our own strength test, won't we?
We will. Yeah, we'll set some tests up.
Yeah.
Like we'll hit somebody with it. Oh, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do that these days, are you? Whack somebody.
Yeah, whackability.
Yeah. Used as a defensive weapon.
Yeah,
we could do. Yeah.
Great. Right. Looking forward to that.
We could do the old, the shower test and all that sort of thing. You could be the guinea pig.
Yeah, I don't mind doing that.
Yeah.
Happy to oblige. Good. Excellent. Right. Let's wrap things up. Anything good this weekend, Ben? Are you a horse racing fan? It's a Grand National tomorrow.
It's Grand National, yes. I'm not really, but I do quite like the Grand National. I might put something on, although there's going to be protests and things about the horse welfare. So yeah, maybe that's a race whose days are numbered because of the problems I get with it. But yeah, it'd be good. That'll be good. I'll probably have a quick look at that, and not much else.
No.
How about you?
We are gearing up for digital claims in a week's time, week on Tuesday. So that's looking good. I think you'll come along to that as well, Ben.
Yes.
And what else am I doing this weekend? No, nothing. I don't think.
Nothing.
Yeah.
We're doing some interviewing, aren't we, at Digital Claims, and we're doing some filming, and I'm speaking. It's going to be a full on day.
It is. We'll review that when we get a few clips on and get some interesting people.
Who we got next week? Got someone on next week, have we?
Oh yes, we've got Jeff Ward, Jeff Ward interview, part 1, next week. So we'll be looking at PPL. We're looking at technology and how it's driving change. So picking up the threads of today's conversation, and Jeff Ward is going to give us his thoughts and insights. So it's a really interesting discussion with Jeff. Good. Right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We shall see you next week. Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend. Bye.